It's your buddy Jake Dominguez, and I'm back with another movie review. I'm continuing my series of Halloween and horror movie kind of themed reviews for the month of October. And today I want to review an older film from about 2006 or so that I saw in the theater and I still watch every Halloween to this day, and it's called Monster House. It's an animated movie. I watch it every year. I thought it'd be fun to review, so let's do that. So, Monster House is an animated movie, and it tells the story of these couple of kids. One of the kid one of the kids, lives across the street from this haunted, creepy, super scary old house, where a freaky, scary old man lives there. After the old man who lives there has to leave the house for a little period of time, they go over there because they realize that this house is literally eating people. And so they gotta figure out what this, monster house is, why it's eating people, and all of that. And this is a really fun movie. Monster House isn't the greatest movie ever made or anything like that. It's a good movie. It's a really good movie. But I wouldn't call it like a great masterpiece or anything. But is that a bad thing? No, of course it's not. Not every movie I need to watch needs to be a masterpiece. The reason I say that is because when it comes to movies that you watch every year, especially something like around Halloween time or Christmas time even, those like tradition movies, they're not always the greatest films, but they don't have to be the greatest films. Sometimes like this, they could just be a really good movie and there's nothing wrong with that. Because of that, I've pretty much watched this every year ever since I saw it. Again, I saw it in the theater like years ago, and it still pretty much holds up. What I like about Monster House is the kids themselves and all the characters. This is a really funny movie. All the comedy is really strong. There's maybe only a few jokes that don't completely work, or maybe a little too childish, you know what I mean? But for the most part, it's a really funny movie, and that's why I enjoy it. It has a great sense of humor about it. But on the other hand, it does have some scares. I love scary movies that are for kids. You know what I mean? If you look back on some of the movies that we watched in our childhoods, a lot of them probably had some scary scenes in them. You know what I mean? Disney does this all the time. They always have a parent die or something like that in one of their movies or something like that. Walt Disney knew that great children and family movies shouldn't be afraid to have a little stuff in there that maybe to make the kids uncomfortable, make them a little scared, before they hit them with a happy ending again. Monster House does this pretty well because there are scenes in this movie that are genuinely creepy. There's actually some scarier stuff in this thing. I mean, watching it as a full-grown adult, it's nothing too serious or freaky or anything. But as a little kid watching this, it was pretty scary compared to what I was used to, and I like that. Nowadays, in the current day, we don't get a lot of movies like that anymore. Well, in terms of children's films, a lot of them are pretty safe, and they're too, I don't know, nervous to be afraid or anything like that. But when I was a little kid, I used to watch movies like this. Lots of great children's film had scary scenes, like, The Never-Ending Story, Labyrinth, all the Harry Potter movies. That's something J.K. Rowling did in all of her books as well. I like watching kids' movies that aren't afraid to get a little scary. It makes kids realize what being scared is. It's a roller coaster ride, if you will, and it works out in the end. I like that. So Monster House does that really well. It has a great sense of humor, there's some little scarier stuff that makes this a good movie. It also captures the trickier side of Halloween as well, and I enjoy that. It takes place during Halloween, and it gets that spirit just right. Probably my biggest issue of Monster House is the animation itself. Now, the animation for Monster House was done in motion capture. This was done by Robert Zemeckis' motion capture company, and he used this same animation and style to do movies like The Polar Express and Beowulf and A Christmas Carol and that sort of thing. This was the second movie to use motion capture. For those who don't know what I'm talking about, that's when they record actors. They put like dots all over them and stuff, and record like their motions, their body movements, and that is animated into the movie. And this was the second major motion picture to do that. And unlike the Polar Express, where they animate them like ridiculously realistically, super like lifelike realistically, this film they still keep them pretty cartoony, like they're not pushed as far into the uncanny valley. And I respect this type of animation. I enjoy some of the movies that I just mentioned. I think motion capture is an interesting way. It's also used in modern day movies, like all the new Planet of the Apes movies, like War for the Planet of the Apes that just came out this year. that uses motion capture for all the for all the gorillas and apes. So that's Andy Serkis, the actor, like doing the body movements as an ape, and they animate that as in the movie, if that makes sense. Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movie was done the same way, also played by Andy Serkis. And I don't mind it, but I'm not a huge fan of that kind of animation personally. And when I watch Monster House, it holds up fine. The animation's perfectly good. And I'm glad that they don't make it all super realistic looking like, say, the Polar Express does, because I know that's pretty controversial in its own right, going to the uncanny valley and that sort of thing. But I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of it, and there are times where it's a little distracting, just their movements and how realistic they look. I don't know. Sometimes just with the style of it, it is distracting to me. There's also, like I said, one or two jokes that are in there just for the little kids that don't always completely work if you're older. But overall, Monster House is a fun movie. It captures the Halloween spirit well, and it also has a really good message about death and that sort of thing, and acceptance of death and moving on with your life. And that's a pretty great message to share, even when you're an adult. So I'm going to give Monster House a B+. It's a really good movie. I would recommend seeing it around this Halloween time. It is directed, I should have mentioned, it's directed by Gil Kenan. He directs it really well. He's since went on to direct like City of Ember and the Poltergeist remake. He's a talented director, and you can see that in this movie. So, good job, Gil Kenan. Well, guys, that's my review of Monster House. What do you think of this movie? Let me know down in the comments section below. You guys are the best. Thank you so much for being there for me. And never forget, I'm your friend. I'm always going to be there for you. Have a great October, and I'll see you next time.